Whoa. Are you going to be giving a samurai sword out of 5 for Fistful of Dollars?
Yes. No, all right, fine. How many dollars out of 5 would you give Yojimbo?
There we go.
Man, you know, I know it's considered a classic, and I do consider it a classic, but I have to think of the films that we're going to watch in future as well, and I would say 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5? Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, I really loved the movie. You know, I wouldn't really change anything about it. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad. It's always nice to get on board with something that everyone considers a classic, but you've never seen it, and then to get into it and find that you love it too. So I really loved the movie, but when I think of the big picture, I'm going 4.
Gotcha. So for me, I mean, having not seen any of these, it's interesting because I have nothing to kind of say, okay, well, I know these are going to be 5s, and I love that, but I kind of like this one. Where does this one fit? And that kind of thing, playing that mind game, the struggle that you're having, you know. So I'm actually going to go 5 out of 5 for this. 5 full dollars, a fistful of dollars, if you will, for me, for this film. Because I just think for what it is, it's perfect. You know, like I might have had more of a boss battle at the end between the, you know, Japanese Jack O'Halloran. But other than that, you know, I just think it's extremely effective. Really surprised me in a lot of ways just with how engaging and entertaining it was, and especially Sanjuro as a character. And Toshino Mifune, you know, I'd seen him in a couple things, but, you know, I can see why this character became such a template for anti-heroes moving forward in cinema. So, you know, it's high. It's uncharacteristically high for me, but I'm going to go 5 out of 5 for this.
Mm-hmm. I as well am going to give this a fistful of dollars at $5. This is such a masterpiece that I couldn't even conceive anything that I would even need to give a few dollars more of a rating, you know, because, you know, all of this movie here, you know, I love it. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
All right, we can stop now. So good. We all loved it. And finally, our last question, Tom. We'll ask you first. At this point, is this franchise fatigue? Do you think, all right, let's call it a day, or is there blood left in this turnip?
You know, I always love it when you guys come to this part and ruminate over that, because, you know, it's a great question, because some films, that story is the whole thing, and then it's a hit, and they try and figure out, oh, okay, what are we going to do with this now? Sometimes they pull it off, sometimes they don't. But I think this one is so portable in not just for the character of Sanjuro. He's a man with no name who comes into town and then he goes again. So, you know, it sells itself that this concept can go anywhere. He could go somewhere else and have a completely different experience and then go somewhere else. And, you know, it's not always going to be about playing two gangs off each other. It's so portable in what it does. And thinking of the bigger picture, the films that were inspired by it, it's so portable in location. You know, we see it going to a Western, and I think Last Man Standing is it Prohibition era America or something like that. I can't remember. You could do it wherever, because all it takes is this character and his unique set of skills. So absolutely not. I think there's a ton of mileage left in this.
No, I think you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, I think so too, because this is the type of character that can go on. Like, we have characters in Japanese cinema like Zatoichi the Blind Swordsman, right, who has got, there's 25 of those films, right, with that character. You know, and again, this is the character. Like, this is the type of character that television shows like Kung Fu The Legend Continues or Highway to Heaven are built upon, where there's this one character who's your main character, you know, and they go from adventure to adventure. The Fugitive, things like that. Like, this is that type of character, and this type of character could be a complete and total goldmine for storytelling, because there is so much flexibility to this type of character that I think this character could never get old. So, because he can be put in so many different situations. So, I definitely think so. Yeah,
absolutely. Just to reiterate what both y'all said, I think when you have movies that are like a singular story that is like everything, like the characters and the situations and all these things like one off, and then you try to continue that. Sometimes it can be clunky because there's really no pieces you can move around and continue like that. That was a great adventure, but there's nothing else to say about that. Let's move on. But this, this guy can have many adventures, and that's a great point you brought up, Brandon, about the TV, the 80s and 90s TV shows, about the one character who goes from, like Quantum Leap, right? Something even like that, right? You go from situation to situation, and it's different every time. And I'm really looking forward to the sequel to this because I really enjoy this character, Sanjuro, and I like to see him in different situations. And if there's one final thing I'll say, it's like I love sword fights. So any film that has a sword fight automatically gets a bump up for me. So that's what really pushes me up to 5. And I hope to see him get some more sword play. He's just so good at it. You really don't get to see him do it much. So maybe we'll have somebody who can kind of hold their own with him a little more in the next one. I'm looking forward to seeing if that's the case or not.
Oh, well, Zach, if you like sword fights, man, you should check out the Star Wars because there's like laser swords in that.
Laser swords? Sounds like the coolest thing ever.
Which, believe it or not, Star Wars is actually inspired by a Kurosawa film called The Hidden Fortress.
Yeah.
Yes, which is another really, really good movie. So.
Which they actually reference in dialogue in the film. Help you find the rebels' hidden fortress.
Yes.
Now,
Zach, I was actually, when I was doing a little research here, I just needed to double check on something. The Yojimbo means the bodyguard.
Are
we going to have to cover the Kevin Costner film, The Bodyguard, with Whitney Houston?
No, but I was hoping they would have a Whitney Houston song at some point in this franchise. So
okay.
Kevin Costner is Yojimbo in The Bodyguard.
Yeah, excellent. Awesome. Thanks so much, Tom, for joining us. I really appreciate it. Please tell the listeners where they can find you.
Well, first of all, thank you. I love this show. I really enjoy listening to you guys every time you bring one out. So it's always a pleasure to join you. You're two of my favorite podcasters, and I think you do great work. So thank you. If you want to check out my show, my main show is the Twilight Zone podcast, which is at thetwilightzonepodcast.com. Coming up, I'll be heading over to New York to Binghamton to cover a rod sailing event there. I think by the time this one goes out, it will have already happened. So what a great time that was. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, the TwilightZonePodcast.com is where I have my show.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's great stuff. Both Zach and I, it was really funny because Zach and I found it independent of each other, and then we both found out that we were listening to it, and so him and I started talking about it. And wow. Zach and I have both been on your show. We talked about the new Twilight Zone and stuff. And again, we're just sitting here now self-congratulating each other here. But yeah, Twilight Zone's definitely peak podcasting because of the research that you put into your show, and I love the tangents that you go on when you do like story readings and things like that. Brings a lot of fun to the show. So
thank you, man.
Right on. Zach, where can people find you when you're not trying to get Tom and I to kill each other?
Very good, very good. I will say that this is probably the most challenging conversation we've had because we came from a series like The Terminator, which was like I am super invested in, I've watched so many times, I have so many hot takes on and opinions and all these things I'm so familiar with intricately. And with this, it's something I've never seen, and it's a foreign language, So anyway, thanks for bearing with us on this one. I felt like this is the toughest one we've done yet, but it's challenging and it's fun. It's great to be exposed to new things. But to find me on Twitter, you can find me at MooreOnZach. That's MooreOnZach. I'm also the host of my own podcast, Always Flown to Smallville. You can find us on Twitter at Always Smallville with one S. We talk about all things that young Superman show from the early 2000s over there. And finally, I'm a host of Standard Orbit, Trek FM's original series podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Trek FM, and we talk about all things old and new, Captain Kirk and the Enterprise. So, Brandon, when you aren't sitting around drinking sake, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Matella. You can find me over on Trek FM with a show called The Line, which is all about the new Star Trek Picard show that's coming out sometime next year. You can find me on the Fandom Podcast Network, as well as in its own independent feed, with a show called Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. And over there, my friends Chris and Tom, we go through all the Hitchcock films one at a time, in chronological order, with a few little tangents along the way. Well, that's all we got for you today. But before we go, we definitely want to thank our executive producers of the network. We have Ken Tripp and Tony Robinson. They're doing a great job. Be sure to check out our new show on the network, Mickey's Marvels, hosted by Patrick and Chris. They talk all about Disney and a lot of Disney-related stuff. And they should be, I think based on the release of this, we should be having smack dab into the Mandalorian. Should have just come out, or else it's coming out very soon. I'm looking forward to that, so that'll be discussed on their show over there. And thank you very much to Zach Tripp for creating our wonderful theme music. You want to find us on Twitter at UFPEarth. You can email us, contact@ufp.earth. And if you feel like supporting us, we have a Patreon account as well. Just Google United Federation of Podcasts. And I guess that's all we got for you. So until next time, I don't have a catchphrase. Until next time, this is Handsome Flagman signing off.
Sayonara.
This has been a production of MTMR Media Works.